"These humans are absolutely pathetic," Commander Vrock announced, slapping his upper appendages against the viewing screen. "Look at them. No exoskeleton, no secondary breathing apparatus, no backup organs. One pitiful heart. And their skin? It tears if they brush against a rough surface." The gathered crew of the Galactic Survey vessel, inevitable conclusion, rumbled with laughter. Science Officer Pelnar adjusted her ocular implants and leaned closer to the display showing the bipedal creatures moving about their settlement. "Commander, with all respect, they have managed to develop rudimentary space travel," she noted, tapping her data pad. "That suggests some level of intelligence at least." Vrock snorted through his nasal cavities. "So have the Glarks of Rigel 7, and they communicate by throwing their excrement at each other. The achievement of technology doesn't necessarily indicate true intelligence." Another round of laughter echoed through the command center. Lieutenant Bizak, the youngest officer on board, nervously cleared his throat tubes. "But sir, our preliminary scans show they have survived multiple extinction-level events. They have adapted to nearly every environment on their planet. Desert, Arctic, mountain, ocean adjacent. That suggests remarkable resilience for such fragile forms." Vrock waved his upper limbs dismissively. "The luck. Nothing more. The universe occasionally throws anomalies our way, Lieutenant. Remember the floating gas bags of Titan? Everyone thought they were miraculous until we discovered they were just methane-filled accidents of evolution." "Perhaps we should conduct a closer inspection?" suggested Pelnar. "The Galactic Council expects thorough reports, especially on potentially sentient species." Commander Vrock sighed dramatically, his chest sacs deflating. "Fine. Prepare a surface expedition. Lieutenant Bizak, since you seem so fascinated by these creatures, you will lead the team. Observe only. No contact. Their primitive minds would likely explode at the sight of superior beings." "Yes, Commander," Bizak replied, trying to hide his excitement. 6 hours later, Bizak and his 3-member research team had established a cloaked observation post on the outskirts of what the humans called a city. Their translator algorithms were still processing the multiple language variations, but they'd made significant progress. "These beings are surprisingly active," noted research specialist Gala, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence as she tracked movement patterns. "They don't seem to rest during daylight hours like most carbon-based life forms. And they are constantly communicating," added Security Officer Dren. "Look at how they exchange sound waves, even when no apparent information needs transferring." Bizak nodded, recording everything. "It appears to be some sort of social bonding ritual. Many species develop communication beyond mere survival necessity." Their attention suddenly focused on a commotion near a tall structure. Smoke billowed from an upper level, and humans were rushing about in apparent panic. "Fire," Dren observed flatly. "Primitive structures using combustible materials. It's typical." Bzak zoomed their observation equipment closer. "Wait. Look. Those humans are running toward the danger." Indeed, several humans in distinctive protective gear were entering the burning building while others guided panicked humans away. "Suicidal behavior?" wondered Gala. "Or some ritual sacrifice?" "No, they are removing other humans from danger," Bizak said, fascination creeping into his voice. "They are risking their safety for others." "Interesting." They watched as one human emerged carrying 2 smaller humans, presumably offspring. The rescuer's outer covering was partially burned away, revealing damaged skin beneath. "Their epidermis is compromised," noted Dren clinically. "That must be extremely painful without an exoskeleton." "Yet they continue," Bzak whispered. "Fascinating." "Nit." The observation continued for hours as more specially equipped humans arrived, applying water and chemical suppressants until the fire was extinguished. Several humans appeared damaged, receiving treatment from others. "They repair each other," Gala noted. "Primitive medical intervention." Bzak couldn't tear his eyes away from the human who had rescued the young ones. Despite obvious pain, the human was refusing extended treatment, gesturing toward others. Record everything, Bizak ordered. This behavior requires further analysis. Back aboard the inevitable conclusion, Commander Vrok reviewed the observation footage with obvious boredom. So they respond to emergencies. Many species do. The hive creatures of Betelgeuse will sacrifice thousands to protect their queen. It's instinctual, not intelligent. But Sir, Bizak countered, these weren't genetically related individuals. They weren't protecting a reproductive leader. They were helping strangers. Vrok scratched his neck ridges irritably. Some primitive pack bonding behavior then, nothing remarkable. Science Officer Pelnar, who had remained silent until now, suddenly pointed to a new data stream. Commander, we are detecting unusual electromagnetic activity from their communication networks. It appears they have discovered an anomaly near their lunar orbit. The anomaly being us, I presume? Vrok said, sighing. Have they detected our presence, despite the cloaking? No, sir. It's something else entirely. Spatial disruption moving toward their planet. Vrok's interest finally peaked. Show me. The main viewing screen shifted to display a massive gravitational wave approaching the human planet. The calculations indicated it would cause catastrophic tectonic disruptions upon impact. Well, Vrok chuckled darkly, seems nature is about to solve our evaluation problem. That disturbance will trigger earthquake cascades across their continental plates. Their fragile structures will collapse. Their bodies will be crushed. Problem solved. Zak looked horrified. Sir, protocol requires we warn sentient species of impending natural disasters. If we have classified them as sentient, Vrok corrected, pointing one limb at Bizak, which we haven't officially done. Besides, what could they possibly do? Their technology is thousands of years behind ours. They can't prevent this. Pelnar looked uncomfortable but didn't contradict her superior. The wave will reach them in approximately 12 of their hours. Perfect timing for us to observe from orbit, Vrok said with inappropriate cheerfulness. Sometimes the universe provides excellent research opportunities. Lieutenant Bizak couldn't sleep. The thought of billions of humans dying while his ship merely observed felt wrong, regardless of protocol. He paced his quarters until an alert chimed on his personal console. Lieutenant, Gala's voice came through. You should see this. The humans, they have detected the wave. Bizak rushed to the observation deck, where he found Gala and Dren already watching the feeds from the planet. Their primitive instruments actually identified the spatial disruption, Dren said, sounding impressed despite himself. And they are responding. On the screens, humans worldwide were mobilizing. Their information networks blared warnings. Their leaders addressed populations. Emergency services were deploying. What exactly do they think they can do? Bizak wondered aloud. That's the remarkable thing, Gala replied. They are not just panicking. They are implementing coordinated evacuation protocols, moving inland from coastal areas likely to experience tsunamis. They are preparing emergency response teams. They are even attempting to calculate impact points using their limited mathematical models. As they watched, millions of humans moved in surprisingly orderly fashion, following predetermined evacuation routes. Others were reinforcing structures or preparing medical facilities. It won't save them all, Dren noted pragmatically. Perhaps not even most, but they are trying. Has anyone informed the commander? Zak asked. He said he doesn't need updates until the actual impact, Gala replied. He's completing his preliminary extinction report for the council. Zak's facial apertures tightened in disapproval. We continue monitoring. Record everything. Hours passed as they watched the humans prepare. Some territories were more organized than others, but nowhere did they see complete chaos or surrender. Even in the most vulnerable regions, humans worked together, setting aside obvious territorial and cultural differences. Impact in 20 minutes, Dren announced. Zak noticed something odd on one of the monitoring screens. What's that facility they are focusing on? Gala enhanced the image. According to their communications, it's some sort of power generation plant. Nuclear fission, extremely primitive and dangerous technology. Why are they sending so many resources there instead of evacuating? Dren ran a quick analysis. The facility sits on what will be an impact point. If damaged, it could release radiation across thousands of square kilometers. They are trying to safely shut it down, Gala realized. They are prioritizing future habitability over immediate survival for some populations. Bizak watched as humans worked frantically at the facility. That's not instinct. That's foresight. Planning. Sacrifice for future generations. The first tremors hit the planet's surface. On 100 different feeds, they watched as the ground began to heave and buckle. Buildings swayed, some collapsing. Great fissures opened in the earth. But something unexpected happened. Where structures fell, humans rushed in to rescue others. Where waters rose, humans used whatever floating devices they could find to save strangers. The planet was breaking apart beneath them, yet they refused to abandon each other. This is not the behavior of a primitive species, Bizak whispered. At the nuclear facility, sections were already collapsing. A group of humans remained inside, working desperately as others evacuated. They watched as one human pushed another towards safety, staying behind to complete some critical procedure as the building crumbled. Commander Vrok should see this, Gala said quietly. Commander Vrok needs to see this, Bizak corrected firmly, hitting the ship-wide communication button. Commander, emergency observation required on the main deck immediately. Vrok arrived moments later, irritated at being summoned. This better be important, Lieutenant. I was finalizing my— Sir, with respect, your extinction report is premature, Bizak interrupted, pointing to the screens. The humans are fighting back. Against a gravitational wave? Impossible, Vrok scoffed, but his tone changed as he watched the scenes unfolding. They are organizing. Adapting. Yes, sir. And more importantly, they are showing advanced social cohesion under extreme stress. They are sacrificing individuals for group survival. They are demonstrating abstract planning for future recovery. The entire command crew had gathered now, watching in silence as the disaster unfolded. The gravity wave had triggered massive earthquakes across multiple continents simultaneously. Yet everywhere, humans fought to save each other and preserve what they could. Their bodies may be breaking, but their social structure isn't, Pelnar observed. It suggests a resilience beyond physical adaptations. Vrok's colors shifted thoughtfully. Perhaps we have been too dismissive. A new alert sounded. Dren checked the readings. Sir, we are detecting a massive energy buildup at multiple locations on the planet. Nuclear facilities failing? Vrok asked. No, sir. These are deliberate energy discharges. They appear to be attempting to counteract the gravitational wave by generating their own gravitational pulses. Vrok's eye stalks extended in shock. That's impossible. They don't have that technology. Apparently they do, sir, Gala said, checking readings. Crude, improvised, and likely killing the humans operating the devices, but they are actually attenuating the wave's effects by about 22%. They are sacrificing themselves to save others, Zek said softly. Using technology they must have developed in secret or very recently. Commander Vrok watched the screens in silence for a long moment. It seems I may have underestimated these creatures. Sir, Pelnar said urgently, the wave is rebounding. Secondary impacts will begin in approximately 1 hour. Current projections suggest casualties of 30 to 40% of their population. Vrok's posture changed. He straightened to full height, his decision-making appendages extended. Lieutenant Bizak, prepare a direct contact team. Science Officer Pelnar, bring our gravitational stabilizers online. Bizak blinked in surprise. Sir? We are intervening. The protocol allows intervention if a species demonstrates exceptional cooperation and self-sacrifice during crisis, Vrok stated. I believe these humans have met that threshold. But sir, our stabilizers will reveal our presence to their entire planet, Pelnar pointed out. Vrok nodded slowly. Yes, It seems these humans are ready for first contact after all. Perhaps we have much to learn from beings who, despite their fragile exteriors, demonstrate such internal strength. As the crew rushed to implement the commander's orders, Bzak couldn't help wondering what other surprises these humans might reveal. Their bodies might break easily, but something inside them, something not visible on any anatomical scan, gave them extraordinary resilience. The real study of humanity, Bzak realized, was just beginning. The inevitable conclusion dropped its cloaking shields, appearing in Earth's sky like an impossible star suddenly born in broad daylight. Across the planet, amidst the devastation of the first gravitational wave, humans paused in their rescue efforts to stare upward. "Are we broadcasting the universal greeting protocols?" Commander Vrok asked, his previous smugness replaced by professional urgency. "Yes, sir. Transmitting on all frequencies they can detect," Communications Officer Tarl replied. "Their global networks are erupting with responses. Most appear to be variations of what the actual hell." Bzak, preparing to lead the contact team, couldn't suppress a nervous laugh. At least they maintain humor during apocalyptic events. The ship's gravitational stabilizers engaged, sending precisely calibrated counterwaves to neutralize the approaching secondary impacts. On the viewing screens, the effect was immediate. Seismic activities decreased by 78%. Tsunami waves receded. Volcanic eruptions triggered by the initial wave began to subside. "The humans are responding," Tarl announced. "Their military forces are mobilizing, but most of their emergency services are continuing rescue operations rather than responding to our presence." "Pragmatic," noted Vrok, sounding impressed despite himself. "They prioritize saving lives over investigating the unknown." Pelnar's analysis screen pinged with new data. "Commander, our stabilizers won't hold indefinitely. We are diverting too much power from our core systems. We need to establish direct contact and coordinate with their scientists to implement a permanent solution." "Agreed. Lieutenant Bzak, you are cleared for surface deployment. Take Specialist Gala and Officer Dren. Make contact with their leadership structure." Bzak nodded, trying to hide his excitement. "Yes, Commander. And our approach protocol?" Vrok hesitated. "Given the circumstances, full disclosure." "They have earned that much." The landing craft descended toward what human broadcasts identified as the United Nations emergency session in a city called Geneva. As they approached, Bzak watched hundreds of human faces turn skyward, expressions displaying everything from terror to awe. "Their emotional range is remarkable," Gala observed. "Notice how their facial structures communicate complex states without verbal exchange." "And yet they are not fleeing," added Dren. "Despite having just survived a planetary disaster, they are standing their ground before an unknown alien craft, either extremely brave or extremely foolish." "Perhaps there's a point where those become the same thing," Bzak mused as their craft settled onto the expansive courtyard. The reception committee that awaited them was an assortment of humans in various attire. Some wore military uniforms, others formal clothing that appeared to denote authority. Medical personnel continued treating injured nearby, barely glancing at the alien craft. "Their focus on duty regardless of circumstance is admirable," Gala noted as the team prepared to disembark. Bzak activated their atmospheric filters and adjusted his translator. "Remember, we represent the Galactic Survey Corps. Be respectful but honest. These beings have demonstrated exceptional capacity under duress." The landing ramp extended, and the three aliens emerged into Earth's sunlight. A collective gasp rose from the assembled humans, followed by an eerie silence. One human stepped forward, female, based on their biological studies, dressed in a simple blue uniform with minimal ornamentation. "I am Director Amara Patel of the United Nations Crisis Response Team," she stated firmly. "You have arrived during a global emergency. If you are hostile, your timing is terrible. If you are friendly, we could use the help." Bzak's translator rendered her words perfectly. He extended his upper appendages in the universal greeting position. "I am Lieutenant Bzak of the Galactic Survey Vessel Inevitable Conclusion. We are not hostile. In fact, we have already intervened to mitigate the gravitational wave affecting your planet. Director Patel's eyes narrowed slightly. You caused this catastrophe? No, Bizak replied quickly. The wave is a natural phenomenon. Our ship detected it approaching your solar system. We observed your response initially, but have now acted to neutralize the secondary effects. Another human stepped forward, this one in what appeared to be a scientific role based on the equipment they carried. That explains the sudden reduction in seismic activity. Are you saying you have technology that can counteract gravitational disturbances of this magnitude? We do, Gala replied, stepping forward. I am research specialist Gala. However, our shipboard systems cannot maintain this intervention indefinitely. We need to establish a more permanent solution, which will require cooperation with your scientists. Director Patel exchanged glances with her colleagues, silent communication passing between them. It's that can be arranged immediately. But first, why were you observing us? For how long? And why did you wait until after the initial wave hit to intervene? Bizak felt his skin flush with embarrassment. But that requires explanation. 2 hours later, in a hastily established joint operations center, Bizak finished recounting the truth to an assembled group of human leaders. He explained their survey mission, their initial dismissive assessment of humanity as physically fragile and therefore unworthy of contact, their commander's decision to observe the disaster as a research opportunity, and finally their change of heart upon witnessing humanity's response. When he finished, the room remained silent. Bizak braced for outrage, for accusations of callousness. What he hadn't expected was laughter. A gray-haired human male in a lab coat shook his head, chuckling. So you guys basically thought we were the galactic equivalent of those hairless cats? Cute but fundamentally defective? That's not inaccurate, Bizak admitted. Well, at least you are honest, Director Patel said, her expression unreadable. And you changed your minds when it mattered. A military official leaned forward. What I want to know is how you detected our gravitation pulse technology. That program is supposed to be classified beyond top secret. Gala's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. We simply observed the energy signatures. They were quite obvious to our sensors. Damn, muttered the official. So much for our ace in the hole if you guys turned out to be hostile. Your technology is remarkably advanced for your development stage, Dren offered, though the implementation was clearly hurried and dangerous for the operators. A painful silence fell across the room. Director Patel nodded slowly. We lost 73 scientists and engineers at those facilities. They knew the devices weren't properly shielded. They activated them anyway. Bizak felt something shift in his understanding. They sacrificed themselves knowingly? Without hesitation, the military official said quietly. When the wave was detected, our options were limited. The pulse technology was experimental, never tested at full scale. But it was all we had. That level of sacrifice, Bizak began, but found himself without adequate words. Is precisely what interested us in your species, came Commander Vrok's voice as he entered the room, flanked by Pelnar. The humans tensed visibly at the new arrivals. Commander, Bizak acknowledged, surprised. I didn't expect you to join the surface team. Neither did I, Vrok admitted, his skin coloration shifting to indicate humility and emotion Bizak had rarely seen from his superior. But after reviewing more of the human response data, I felt compelled. Vrok turned to address the assembled humans directly. Your bodies are indeed fragile by galactic standards. No natural armor, limited sensory capacity, vulnerable to temperature variations, radiation, pressure changes. Physically, you are unremarkable. Director Patel crossed her arms. You have traveled across space to insult us during a planetary crisis? No, Vrok continued. I have come to acknowledge that our assessment protocols are flawed. We measure species by their physical adaptations, technological advancement, and social cohesion. You rank poorly in the first category, moderately in the second, but in the third. He paused, his breathing apparatus expanding slightly. In the third, you have demonstrated something we have rarely encountered. And what's that? Asked the scientific advisor. You call it different things. Courage, selflessness, sacrifice. The willingness of individuals to face certain death for others, not just genetic relatives, but strangers. Not just for immediate survival, but for abstract future welfare. Pelnar activated a holographic display showing scenes from around the planet. Humans rushing into collapsing buildings, forming human chains across floodwaters, sharing limited supplies, working together across what were obviously political and cultural boundaries. We have observed over 300 species capable of space travel, Vrock continued. Many are physically superior to you, most have more advanced technology. But remarkably few demonstrate this particular quality at the scale you do. One of the humans, a younger female who had been silent until now, spoke up. So you are saying our superpower is basically being nice to each other during emergencies? That's somewhat anticlimactic. Several humans laughed, breaking the tension. Vrock looked confused. I assure you it is far from anticlimactic, he replied earnestly. Any species with interstellar capability would have fractured under such pressure. Regional powers would have hoarded resources. Strong individuals would have abandoned the weak. Your cohesion, despite diversity, is unprecedented in our records. Well, don't give us too much credit, the military officer said dryly. We are still plenty capable of being complete jerks to each other when the planet isn't breaking apart. Yeah, come back next week when we are arguing about who pays for reconstruction. Another human added, generating more laughter. Bizak was fascinated by this response. You use humor even when discussing your own flaws. Another interesting adaptation. Director Patel straightened, redirecting the conversation. While this cultural exchange is fascinating, we still have a planet to save. You mentioned a permanent solution to the gravitational disturbance? Yes, Pelnar stepped forward. We can help you modify your existing gravity pulse technology to create a sustainable planetary shield. It will require significant power and placement of generators at strategic locations, but it's within your current scientific capability. With our guidance, Vrock added, which we are now authorized to provide under Galactic Council First Contact protocols. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Director Patel asked directly. I appreciate the assistance, but in my experience, help rarely comes without expectations. Vrock's facial structures shifted in what Bizak recognized as genuine amusement. Perceptive. Yes, we have a proposal. The Galactic Council maintains observation posts throughout explored space. We would like to establish such a post in your solar system, with your permission. To keep an eye on us? Make sure we don't become a problem. The scientific advisor asked. Partially, Vrock admitted, but more importantly, to learn. Your species has developed something our science has difficulty quantifying. This internal resilience. This humanity. The Council believes it warrants further study, not as subjects, but as potential teachers. The humans exchanged glances, silent communication passing between them again. We will need to discuss this with a broader coalition of world leaders, Director Patel finally said. But speaking personally, I'm open to arrangement. Excellent, Vrock replied. Now, shall we begin work on your planetary defense system? The gravitational stability our ship is providing will only last another 12 hours. 3 days later, Bzak stood on a hilltop overlooking a city humans called Tokyo. Below, despite significant damage from the initial wave, reconstruction was already underway. Temporary shelters housed displaced populations, distribution centers, provided necessities. Medical facilities operated beyond capacity, with many humans volunteering despite their own injuries. It's remarkable how quickly they rebuild, Gala observed, joining him at the vantage point. Their physical limitations require them to create external solutions rather than evolving natural protections. Perhaps that's their evolutionary advantage, Bizak suggested. They can't adapt their bodies quickly enough to survive threats, so they have developed this extraordinary capacity for cooperation and problem-solving instead. The new planetary defense network was functional, with 13 generator stations positioned strategically around the globe. Human and alien scientists had worked continuously to bring the system online before the inevitable conclusion stabilizers failed. Commander Vrock has received approval from the Council, Gala informed him. We are establishing a permanent observation and exchange outpost in orbit. You have been offered the position of liaison officer, given your appreciation for human culture. Bizak felt his chest sacs expand with pride. I accept. The humans have officially named the disaster the Great Quake, Gala continued. Casualties were approximately 13 million. Significant, but far below initial projections of billions. Every loss is felt deeply by them, Bizak noted. They don't calculate casualties as mere statistics. Another quality the Council finds interesting. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of a ground vehicle. Director Patel emerged, looking exhausted but determined. Lieutenant Bizak, Specialist Gala, she greeted them. Taking in the view? Observing your reconstruction efforts, Bizak replied. Your efficiency is impressive. Necessity, she shrugged. We are fragile, remember? We can't survive in the rubble like some species apparently can. About that assessment, Bizak said carefully. I believe we were fundamentally mistaken. Oh! Your bodies may break easily, but what's inside? Your minds, your social structures, your willingness to sacrifice for abstract principles, those appear remarkably durable. Director Patel smiled slightly. We have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. An interesting biological fallacy, Gala remarked. Physical damage typically leaves systems weakened, not strengthened. It's not meant literally, Patel explained. It refers to overcoming challenges, learning, adapting, growing. Like your species has done repeatedly, Bizak realized. Your planet's history shows multiple near-extinction events, yet you have continued to develop. We are stubborn that way, Patel said with a small laugh. Though I must admit, having some advanced friends with gravity-controlling technology will make future disasters a bit less concerning. The Council has authorized comprehensive sharing of defensive and medical technologies, Bizak informed her. No weapons, of course, but significant advancements for your infrastructure, health systems, and environmental stability. And all we have to do is let you study what did your commander call it? Our humanity. A fair exchange, I believe? Director Patel looked out over the recovering city. You know what I find ironic, Lieutenant? For centuries, our science fiction imagined aliens as either conquering monsters or enlightened saviors. It never occurred to us that you might just find us interesting. The galaxy is full of physical marvels, Director Patel. Species that can survive in vacuum, creatures that live for millennia, beings that can regenerate entire body sections. But what we have rarely encountered is a species that consistently chooses to place others before self, especially beyond genetic connections. That quality isn't universal among us, she cautioned. We have our share of selfishness and cruelty. Yet, when truly threatened, you unite. You sacrifice. You persevere. Usually, she agreed. When we remember what matters. From orbit, the inevitable conclusion sent a communication ping to Bizak's receiver. The crew was preparing to depart, leaving behind the initial observation team. Soon, a proper diplomatic vessel would arrive to establish formal relations with Earth's governments. I must return to my ship, Bizak informed her. But I look forward to our continued cooperation. Director Patel extended her hand, a human greeting gesture they had learned indicated trust. Safe travels, Lieutenant, and thank you for seeing beyond our fragile exteriors. Bizak carefully took her hand, marveling at the contradictions. Such soft tissue, so easily damaged, yet connected to a mind and spirit capable of extraordinary resilience. Perhaps, he suggested, fragility itself has been your greatest strength. It has forced you to develop these other qualities that we now find so remarkable. An interesting theory, she replied. Maybe we will explore it together once we have finished rebuilding. As Bizak's transport lifted toward the waiting ship, he watched the sprawling human cities growing smaller below, physical structures damaged but being rapidly repaired. Tiny figures moving purposefully through the landscape, working together despite their individual vulnerabilities. The Galactic Council had been categorizing species by their external characteristics for millennia: strong exoskeletons, multiple respiratory systems, redundant organs, natural weaponry, immunity to radiation, adaptations to extreme environments, all measurable, quantifiable traits. But humans had developed something different, something internal, something harder to measure but perhaps more valuable in the long arc of evolution. Commander Vrock joined him at the observation window as they prepared to depart. "You seem contemplative, Lieutenant." "I was just thinking, sir. Perhaps we have been measuring species by the wrong criteria all along." Vrock's color patterns shifted thoughtfully. "Perhaps. Or perhaps we have simply discovered a new form of strength we hadn't properly valued until now. What would you call it, sir? This human quality." The commander considered for a moment, watching the blue planet receding below them. "I believe they have a word for it themselves. They call it heart." Bizak nodded, understanding that the word meant far more than just the fragile pumping organ in their chests. It represented everything they had witnessed during the Great Quake: courage, compassion, cooperation, self-sacrifice. The qualities that had transformed physically vulnerable primates into a species worthy of the stars. "Heart," Bizak repeated quietly. "Yes, that seems exactly right."